Please welcome multidisciplinary artist David Alabo.
Hello, everyone. It's an incredible honor to be here in front of you all, and I'm so grateful to be able to share my story with you. My name is David Alabo, and I'm an Afrofuturist digital artist. And I employ a variety of mediums. Thank you. I employ a variety of mediums using stuff like computer-generated programming, virtual reality, and even a little bit of artificial intelligence to create the works that you see behind me. I build colorful and fantastical worlds that put Black people in the spotlight and show them in positions of empowerment and strength. Now, why do I do this? Because I believe that everyone, and especially people that look like me, need art that not only transports them to a new reality or future, but also provides a sort of meditative healing, not an escape from a world that demands so much from us and gives us so little in return. Before I move on to talk about this movement that I'm a part of, let me just give you a little bit about myself, a little bit of background. So my mother is Moroccan, and my father is Ghanaian. So I've kind of grown up with a very interesting blend of West African and North African heritage. And I'm yet to meet another Ghanaian Moroccan, so if it's out there, holler at me. But on top of that, my father was a diplomat, which meant that we as a family, we were always moving around and having to assimilate to so many different cultures, whether it was in Ghana, Morocco, India, Russia, or even Italy, where I was born, when my dad was serving there. Now, I promise you this is not a geography lesson. I'm not bragging about where I've been. But what I'm trying to say is that I've been blessed enough to have sort of a unique perspective as a human being, and more importantly, as a Black person, navigating this sort of weird and often complicated place we call Earth. And now what I wanted to talk with you today about is sort of the speculative power of Afrofuturism and its sort of potential to create a future that is truly inclusive and representative of all of us. Now, what is Afrofuturism and why is it important? Well, Afrofuturism powerfully imagines elsewhere, beyond our present alienation. Our work is rooted in the desire to transform the present for Black people. To do so, we imagine a reality in which we are agents of our own story, countering histories that have often dismissed our contributions, or even worse, erased us from them entirely. And I often get asked, how do I come up with, what are my inspirations for my art, and how do I get these kind of ideas? And usually the answer is quite simple. The very nature sometimes of being a Black person in this world is surreal. So I draw from my experiences growing up, when I've often, felt quite isolated or alienated and sometimes displaced. And these themes are often quite prevalent in my work and also in other kind of pioneering Afrofuturists. And it's something we can sort of relate to all as a collective, right? But the work of imagining alternate futures is also about imagining alternate paths. Paths in which Black and Indigenous people feature as more than just passive observers. It's about rewriting the narrative on agency and action, and it can often be political. This desire to uncover the past is increasingly necessary today, particularly as a means of challenging the systems of capitalism and exploitation today. This idea of an elsewhere represents possible histories as possible futures. What could have been, Personally, for me, I like to push that definition even further. And, I try to bring it down to how we create and subsequently consume art these days and what that means for the future. As an artist, I find myself constantly asking, what tools or what tech can I use around me to kind of push the boundaries of art? And if those don't exist, how can we build them, right? I feel like I'm in the right building here to be asking those questions, right? But what kind of separates your typical futurist from an Afrofuturist is that we not only ask ourselves, what are we building for the future? But we ask, who is building them? And for whom is it being built for? Which I think is a very important distinction to make, you know? So last year in November, I was invited to kind of create an sort of video installation like the one we have out in the lounge. And I watched for like 3 days as people were going and coming and sort of responding to the work. And I was like kind of taking that all in. And what I found so fascinating was that like children, like let's say below the age of 12, where their response to the art was completely different. Whereas like people like us, the adults or whatever, would come in and ask kind of these artsy questions like, what's the context of this and all of that. The kids were like jumping, they were like running around, taking like selfies, recording each other in front of the display. And you know, they were more than just observers, you know, they were active participants in the art, you know, which kind of like changed the way I was seeing the purpose of the art I was making, you know. And maybe they were just kids being kids, you know, but it really opened my eyes to that importance of the work, because it showed that, you know, even though the way we create art is rapidly evolving, you know, the tools that we use and all are changing so fast, the way we consume art is changing at an even faster rate, you know. So that's something that I feel like is often overlooked and that we should keep in mind, you know. And that's why I feel like it's so important that Black and Indigenous people are not only active consumers of technology, but are also playing a pivotal role in its construction and evolution, you know? So after kind of all the buzz from the fair was done, the storm had settled, I noticed a boy sitting there, and he had been sitting next to his mother for about 45 minutes and was just glued onto the screen, you know? And he was wearing these big headphones, and I was curious, obviously. I wanted to ask what was up. So the mother kind of pulled me aside and told me that like her son was actually diagnosed with a severe case of autism, and that this was the only work out of the entire giant art fair that he felt comfortable enough to watch and kind of absorb, you know. And that was like obviously an incredibly humbling experience for me, because, you know, even though it was obviously, an incredibly humbling experience, you know, but it kind of showed me that the purpose of my work is to obviously allow people to feel empowered and find strength in the work, you know, just like that little boy did, you know, and to everybody who's maybe ever felt isolated, alienated, or displaced can find strength and power through the work I was creating, you know. And now you can imagine how silly I felt after like wondering what he was doing with the headphones, you know. But like I've said before, I want my work to create not only empowerment, but also allow people to have time to have meditative healing and to feel peace and strength through the work I do, you know? So we need to imagine futures beyond the continuous reinfliction of the wounds of our past, you know? I feel like, you know, it's so powerful when you can see a Black person thriving in a sort of unexplored place, you know? There's great power in reimagining new realities, and it's up to us to be at the forefront of, you know, technological innovation in combination with art and science to provide hope in a time when I feel like we need it the most. Thank you for listening.